Do you miss the job?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What do you miss about the job?
Truthfully, putting thugs in jail. I'm Wayne Johnson, retired lieutenant with Tennessee Highway Patrol. I started in 1971. I retired from that department in 1999.
Wayne, if you could, talk a little bit about your childhood, where you grew up, what kind of kid you were, and what attracted you to law enforcement.
Of course, I grew up in rural Hamilton County. It was country then. Of course, it's not so country anymore, but I was shy and timid in school. My father was a motorcycle officer at one time for the city of Chattanooga. And I remember him coming home on lunch break or whatever on his motorcycle, which was an Indian, by the way, Indian brand. And my older brother and myself would go out there while he was having lunch and climb over that motorcycle and turn on the siren and the red lights. It's a wonder we didn't turn it over, because we were all over it. That was one thing I remember years and years ago. I was probably, 7, 8 years old at the time.
So that's what attracted you to law enforcement, and from 7, 8 years old, you kind of, that flame was always kind of there to get involved in law enforcement. What did you do after high school, and how long after high school before you got involved in law enforcement?
Well, I graduated high school when I was a senior at 16, so I graduated at 17. Of course, too early to do anything then. And I went to work. Of course, I went in the Army and come out of that. And I had a job traveling as a manufacturer's rep. I traveled all over the Southeast. And I came home from being on the road one Friday night, and my older brother worked for the sheriff's office. So we were sitting there Saturday morning having a cup of coffee, and I was tired traveling, living out of a suitcase. Just wore me out, just constantly. You didn't have a life, just constant from one city to the next. And my brother said, "There's an opening at the sheriff's office." I said, "Really?" He said, "Yeah. This is on Saturday morning." And I thought, well, I'll go down Monday morning and apply. So I went down Monday morning, talked to the sheriff, and he said, "Can you start tonight?" So I started that night in dispatch. I was a dispatcher for a while. Of course, all dispatchers want to be on the road. So I used to go down on my day off and ride with some of the officers, and got a taste for it, got it in my blood, so to speak. And then I went on the road and worked for the sheriff's office for a couple of years. At that time, the Highway Patrol, of course, paid more money than I was making. So I thought, if I'm going to do this, let's make the most you can. So I applied with the Highway Patrol, and I was accepted into the academy. That was in July 1971. And then I spent almost 30 years of my career with the Highway Patrol.
So talk about what the academy was like in 1971. Where was it? How long was it? What was that experience like for you?
Our academy was in Nashville at the training center, which is still there today. And it was like a mile boot camp for me at the time. I've been through boot camps, that was nothing, you know. But now it's pretty strenuous. It's like being in boot camp again. We spent 10 weeks locked behind doors. You couldn't go out. You got to go out on Wednesday evening for a little while. If you weren't back by 10 o'clock, the doors were locked and you were out of the academy. So that was your drive to be back and behave yourself and be home by 10 o'clock.
Well, here's what I'm going to tell you, Wayne. In 1971, I was 1.
Thanks.
You don't look like you were a state trooper in 1971. Holy smokes, that's incredible. Good for you. You're in great shape, you know. You really are. I just don't tell that to everybody. It's incredible. So do you have any memories or stories from the academy that you can share with us?
Not that I remember from the academy. Of course, that's been several years ago. I know it was. I was pretty good in class. You know, of course, I was all right with the physical activities too, because I've been in the Army and so forth, and I was in decent shape. So it really wasn't a challenge for me. I did right well. And when you graduate, the day of graduation, you're given your assignment. You had no way of knowing where you're going to go. And then the highway patrol would not send you back home. They might send you across the state. They might send you to a county close to where you were from, but not where your home county. So I was assigned to Coffee County. And it surprised me because my brother, who also was a trooper, and he had just left Coffee County probably a year before I was assigned there. And Jim was a big guy. He was like 6'2", 230 pounds, and very, very strong. So all the tush hogs in Coffee County thought that he had come back, because we looked so much alike. That saved me a lot of turmoil, because they wouldn't challenge me because it hadn't been whipped by him, so they didn't want none of me. They thought it was him doing the same thing. So I had a pretty good life in Coffee County. I really did.
So I'm actually very impressed that in 1971 that the academy was 10 weeks long, because up in Illinois you talk to guys that started back then and it was like, yeah, we went for a 2-week academy, or there was no academy, you
Right.
just got hired and did field training. So that's incredible. So you finish the academy, you end up in Coffee County. Is there a field training program back then, and what does that look like?
When you get to the county, a rookie, you're assigned with a seasoned trooper. You ride with him for a couple of weeks, mainly just to show you the territory, what roads go where, and the county lines and so forth. Of course, with the state, there are no county lines. You go where you're needed, but you're assigned to that county. And of course, within us, you also might work a county adjacent to you, because we were spread so thin. Our backup was 50 miles away. So you learn the county and where to go, where not to go, and so forth. And you're over the trooper for about 2 weeks for where he thought you were ready. He'd tell the sergeant, he knows where he's going, so then you turn loose.
So talk about the equipment that you had, your personal equipment, your duty belt, what you carried, the equipment that was in the car. What was your first squad car, and then how does that compare to when you left the job, what the troopers on the street were carrying and what was in their cars?
At the time, and of course this is 1971, our equipment was strictly a shotgun and what you call a slapjack. Now, you had to buy your own slapjack, but everything else was furnished. Everything you wore, your boots, your uniform, your leatherware, your weapon, handcuffs, was all furnished by the state. The only thing you had to buy, of course, was a slapjack if you really wanted one, okay? And about that time, you really needed one. So, in the time we shared a patrol car. I remember that was in 71. I didn't get my own patrol car until 1978. We shared. Like I worked day shift. I'd pick up the second shift guy at 3 or 4 o'clock. He'd take me home, and then he would use the car. He'd get off at midnight or 1 o'clock. Then the next day, a day shift guy would come by and get me, and I go get the car. It just a lot of back and forth, they had sharing cars. So in 1978, I believe it was, the state bought, I guess, enough cars to give everybody Trooper 1, so we were assigned our own car then. A 78 Plymouth 440 Magnum. It would scream.
That's incredible that you guys shared cars. I had no idea.
Yeah.
No idea. So for those that don't know, can you explain what a slapjack is?
A slapjack is a long piece of leather, stitched on all the way around, and if you tear one apart, it has some lead in the end of it, which would help just weight it down in your pocket, I guess,
So slapjack, revolver back in the day,
A
correct?
38 revolver.
38, not a 357.
No, 38.
Revolver, wow. And then when you left, when you retired, what did it look like for the troopers on the street as far as equipment then, and what they had in their squad cars and carried on their person?
Well, and of course today I see a trooper and they have tasers, you know, and we had never heard of a taser. And they've gone through several weapon changes. We went from a .38 revolver to a .357 Magnum to a .40 caliber. No, I'm sorry, to a 9mm, then to .40 caliber. That's what I had when I retired. The troopers today have gone from probably a .40 caliber to a 9mm, I think, and they're still carrying 9mm. But they also have been issued tasers. And they also have body cams. And body cams were unheard of when I worked there. We didn't even have dash man cams. That was unheard of. So things have really changed in the last several years, over the years.
You know, I was talking how when I started, you know, the city that I worked for when I started was incorporated in 1958. And when I came on, there were still some guys that, you know, back then, guys did 40 years. And they were still there, and you know, probably the biggest change that they saw in their careers was going from revolver to semi-automatic, and they had just started getting computers in the cars when I was hired. So in 20 years, maybe they saw 2 changes. Everything else had always been the same. And then you look at it now, and it's like there's constantly new pieces of equipment, new procedures coming into law enforcement today. It's incredible just how quickly it changes. So talk about some of your assignments throughout your career, maybe some of the additional responsibilities that were given to you. I don't know if you had collateral duty assignments. Talk about that and maybe some of the districts. Do you call them districts here? Mm-hmm. Some of the districts that you worked in. Really, what were your responsibilities throughout your career?
Well, I was, of course, Chattanooga District was at the time 11 counties. It's now 12. They've added a county. There are 9 districts in Tennessee, so 9 district headquarters. Chattanooga was headquarters for district number 2. And then that district number 2, several troopers were, maybe 4 or 5 troopers assigned to Hamilton County at the time. And then, you know, you had like a substation. Coffee County, where I first worked, was a substation. And we had 4 troopers, plus a supervisor. And we might work the adjacent county, which is Franklin County. They might have 1 or 2 troopers assigned to that. Of course, on their days off or sick leave or vacation, you had to cover for them. So like I say, you drive 50 miles sometime to answer a call. That's nothing unusual. And if you work the interstates, like I did at the time, midnight shift, you worked out Hamilton County, but you might go to Beech Grove, which is the 97-mile marker. And that's a long stretch of road over Mount Eagle Mountain, west towards Nashville. And then you get up there, and lo and behold, you got a call somewhere towards Chattanooga. Here you come again.
What's the rank structure and your promotions, and what responsibilities come with each of those promotions?
Well, the Tennessee Highway Patrol was like the military ranks. You have a trooper, and now they have master troopers. We didn't at the time. Then our next rank was a sergeant, and then a lieutenant, captain, major, lieutenant colonel, and colonel. So I went from a trooper course to a sergeant, and I was called the midnight sergeant, midnight supervisor. I was over several, all the counties on the midnight shift. You might have 3 or 4 troopers working that midnight shift, you know, on different counties that you would have to supervise or assist or whatever. And then I went from midnight sergeant to daytime, or first and second shift, over 4 or 5 troopers under your supervision, you know, all the reports and cars and so forth. And then I was asked if I'd be interested in coming inside as the administrative lieutenant, which in the military is like a first lieutenant. The admin lieutenant is the second in command of the district. He's over everything that the district has, all the fleet, reports, personnel. I was also the evidence custodian, so I had all the evidence, the radio equipment, the weapons, the supplies, the office supplies. It was a full-time job, and a very stressful job. If it went right, somebody else got credit. If it went wrong, it was my fault.
So, your father was a motorcycle cop with Chattanooga PD.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever have an interest in going over to Chattanooga, or was that never anything that you thought about?
Well, because I had worked for the sheriff's office, so I had a taste of what the sheriff's office did, which is entirely different from what the highway patrol did. And at the time, the state paid more money. Well, you're not going to get rich, but you need to make all you can to support your family. So I know I never had an inclination to go back from the state. That was my career. Now, I had a brother that was a trooper, and he in fact did come back to Chattanooga, and he was a detective when he passed away. So.
Was there ever anybody that you looked to during your career as a mentor, or really someone that you appreciated and you really emulated their style of leadership?
Probably that would have been my first sergeant in Coffee County, and he's still alive today. And he eventually went from sergeant to lieutenant, and then captain, and then he was a colonel, and he retired as a colonel. I respected that man then, and I respect him today. And he was a stickler for the rules and paperwork. At the time, we filled out just a long form for paperwork. If you got to the end of it, and you made a mistake, there's no strikeovers, no whiteout, you start over. He was a stickler for perfection and neatness. I remember going to work, say at 7 a.m., and when you went 10-8 at 7 o'clock, you get a call from 214, which is the supervisor's number. Meet me at so-and-so, and you met him for inspection. He inspected your leather gear, your uniform, your car, inside the car, raised the trunk, raised the hood, and look at it. On his days off, you think, well, the sergeant's off today, I got it made. You go work at, say, 3 o'clock in the afternoon or 7 o'clock in the morning. Dispatcher would call you, 228, signal 8214. You go to his house. He's gonna look at your car and your boots, your uniform, your equipment. He was a stickler for paperwork, which at the time was aggravating, but now I respect it.
Do you think anything close to that still happens today?
No, I do not. No. Of course, now the tickets are electronic, I understand, and they don't have the reports that we had. It's all, I guess, computerized, where they type them out maybe. So we didn't have to write them out like I did. And the tickets went from a little small 4x6, 4x8 card, I guess, to now they're, they were when I retired anyway, an 8x11 page. And,
Was there any training above and beyond the academy that you went to, and any specialized training that you attended?
And of course, I supervised the senior school for management classes and so forth, and what do you call it now? What we call verbal judo, de-escalation and so forth. We had that. Of course, every academy you went to, or not academy, every in-service training you had every year, you went to the academy in Nashville for in-service, or you went through firearms, you went through driving track, self-defense classes. We had the baton, and then.
So you did a lot of work on the highways.
Yes.
A lot of traffic crashes.
Right.
I'm sure there was incidents that you were called to. I'm sure rolling domestics and everything else. Is there Are there any traffic stops that kind of stand out in your mind as being memorable, funny, a good experience, or something you learned from?
Well, my first day in Coffee County, I was a brand new trooper, fresh out of the academy. Of course, I had worked for the sheriff's office, so I had some experience. But I met the sergeant at the Coffee County jail where he picked me up. And we had no more left the jail. He got a call of a fatality on Highway 41 North. So here we go. So my first job in my very first day was working a 3-car fatality on Highway 41 in Coffee County. I remember that very well. And then I remember an incident in Coffee County still. I was working a day shift, going what they call old highway, the old Tullahoma Highway, which ran parallel to Highway 55, which is the new state road. And I was bright, sunshiny day. I happened to look over to my right, and I saw a single-engine Cessna plane coming down. I thought that plane just crashed. So I take off over there trying to find it, and go down Highway 55 towards Tullahoma. Lo and behold, there sits the plane at a little mom and pop gas station. So I stop and get out and approach the pilot. He was what I call flying while drunk. He was under the influence. He had run out of gas or fuel and had landed that plane on a state highway, taxied up to the mom and pop grocery store and says, fill her up. Of course, they called us and we got there. I arrested him for flying while drunk, I called it, which was operation of an aircraft under the influence. And then we had to get a pilot out of the Tullahoma airport and block off the highway to come out there and take that plane, fill it up with fuel, and take that plane up and fly back to the airport and land it. But when he landed on a 2-lane road, his wingtips is a rural area, and there's mailboxes on the road, side of the road. He knocked down mailboxes right and left. That stands out.
Did you experience in your time on the road, did you respond to a lot of domestics? Did you have responsibilities in assisting county agencies in some of the more rural areas?
Well, in the rural areas, the sheriff's office were, like we were, very limited in personnel. So we would back them up, so to speak, or assist them. Not so much on domestics, but on burglaries, robberies, stolen vehicles, and so forth. And years ago, the state patrol was the police in a lot of these counties because they didn't have but 1-man or 2-man deputies, you know, and they would go get off at 10, 11 o'clock at night, and we were out until the rest of the hours of the night, so we were the police force.
Any incidents that you can remember when you were basically policing those jurisdictions, you know, coming off the highway and providing law enforcement to those residents?
I remember I had transferred from Coffee County to Marshall County, which is Columbia, Tennessee, or not, Lewisburg, Tennessee, near Columbia. And we were working one day and got a call from dispatch that the sheriff was needing assistance at a house where he'd gone to either serve a warrant or civil process or something. And when he pulled in the driveway, they started shooting at him, shot his window out. So we'd go assist him, and I remember rolling in and they were still shooting and had to bail out of the car, of course, and take cover. And then we just held them off until somebody could talk the guy out of the house. But he already shot the window out of the sheriff's car, you know, and was shooting at our cars and so forth.
Did you have what did the emergency response from the Tennessee Highway Patrol look like? Did the Highway Patrol have a SWAT team or emergency response team?
Yeah, they had a SWAT team, and they were called, we can call it SWAT, it's called TAC team, the tactical team. They were stationed in Nashville. They respond to specific incidents, you know, where it had been a sniper situation or, you know, any critical response thing. they'd respond. Of course, it took them for a while to respond from Nashville. So we didn't have them in the district headquarters.
Is that still the way it is today? Do you know?
No, they have what they call their CERT teams now, critical response teams, assigned to each district, I understand. Of course, I haven't been in touch with, when you're retired, out of sight, out of mind,
Well, and it's interesting you bring that up because that's in large part why I wanted to do this because, retired guys, it doesn't matter what agency you work for, how big it is, and some do a better job than others, but for the most part, just like you said, as soon as you retire, you're no use to me anymore.
Right, absolutely. You can't help me,
Yeah.
And when I was, of course, when I was the admin lieutenant, and we didn't have cell phones at the time, had a pager. And my pager would go off constantly, somebody wants something. But then, if I could help somebody, they'd call me. And I always helped anybody I could. But when you retire, you can't help me no more. See ya. Good luck.
Yeah, it's incredibly unfortunate. So, you're a sergeant on the road, you get promoted to lieutenant. Is it an exam process or is it an appointment?
You take an exam, it's a test, okay, and you have to score in the top 3 to be even considered. I think it's top 5 now. Have to score in the top 5, and then at the time it was politics, It wasn't what you know, it's who you know. That was about everywhere, I understand. So I was fortunate enough that I made lieutenant. I was assigned to safety education at the time, and from that position, you go to civic clubs and churches, and you go to schools and industrial and give classes on safety or drugs or whatever. I also had a drug dog at one time. Best job I ever had was handling that drug dog. I worked felony interdiction. So I would work the road with my dog, and I would find, and there's indicators of the car needs stopping. You stop that car, and sure enough, there are mules, they're hauling. I made several seizures of cars and money and arrest.
Are there any of those that kind of stand out in your mind? Was there one that was larger than the other or just more interesting? Or
Probably more interesting, a famous actor passed through my county one afternoon or one night with expired tags. Didn't have no idea who he was, or he wasn't well known at the time like he is now. But I stopped him for expired tags, walked up to the car, and he smelled odor of marijuana, which of course gives you probable cause to search. And then I made the arrest, and there was LSD and mushrooms, hallucinogenic mushrooms, and of course marijuana. I arrested him, towed the car, went through the car, searching it, He made bond, and went on his merry way. I haven't seen him since.
German Shepherd or Malinois, which do you prefer?
Well, I had a dog named Grizzly. He was half lab and half golden retriever. A great dog. He would absolutely climb this wall if he smelled dope in the ceiling, trying to find it. Once he got the scent, he would not stop him. He would go after it. Get on his back and scoot under cars if he smelled a false compartment, a gas tank, whatever. A great dog. Get him out of the car, he'd play with my daughter, my wife could play with him. You put him in the car, he's a whole different personality. He'd bite you. You come near that car and me, you were bit. I remember one day, Carol and I, my wife, were walking on the levee in Brainerd, out for Sunday afternoon walk with the dog. Here comes a guy jogging, innocent, just jogging towards me. And Grizzly kept watching him. And the closer he got, Grizzly started bristling up. He got from me to you, and Grizzly lunged at him. He thought he was a harm to me. So he was going to protect me. A great dog.
When did Grizzly and his service?
Well, I really don't know because I was a lieutenant at the time with a dog, which is unheard of. It was for 3.5, 4 years I had him. And then somebody in the administration, probably in Nashville, decided, hey, a lieutenant with a dog? No. So they called me one day and said, here's your deal. You can keep your dog and give up your bars, or keep your bars and give up your dog. Well, since the bars meant money in my pocket and towards my retirement, I sadly gave up my dog. He went to another handler, another county, and I never did see him again. Of course, he's deceased now, I know. That's been years ago.
Is there anything in your career that, looking back, you wish you could do over again, or maybe do a little bit differently, do it better?
Well, you always want to do better. You know, mistakes you make, and you're going to make mistakes along the road. As far as doing different, I don't know the thing I do different, you know. I had a good career. I didn't get rich, but I enjoyed what I did.
Any regrets?
If there's one, it's probably that my daughter grew up with me working nights, weekends, and holidays. Of course, her mother passed away when she was 12. And of course, Carol and I then raised her from 12 on. And, you know, she finished high school, she went to college, she didn't get pregnant, and didn't do drugs. So I did something right.
So that brings me to, and so you touched on a little bit there, but I don't know that we always see the impact the job has on our family. And I probably didn't see it till my last year on the job, really, because I was just so focused on doing the job, right? What impact do you think that the job had on your family?
Well, of course, you know, we had to do without a lot of things that other families might enjoy because we didn't have the money. Police don't make a lot of money. They are better paid now than we were, for sure. But you're not going to get rich in that job. So we had to do without. We had to watch our pennies, you know, and scrape by and not have the nicest things that somebody else had. And then her growing up without me on weekends and, you know, nights and holidays, and when they were getting together for Christmas and Thanksgiving, I had to go to work, you know. So that was an impact on my family.
What's the biggest change that you've seen in law enforcement? Put technology aside, you know, let's not look at technology, but maybe on the personnel side. Do you see a difference in the troopers from 1971 to today?
Well, I really can't say about today, right? Because, you know, I'm not around the troopers. Can only see them on the highway, you know, and they don't know me and I don't know them. I know the equipment has changed. I mentioned the tasers before. We don't have tasers, didn't have tasers. And I'd have to say, in this society, back when I worked the road, troopers were respected. When you stop somebody, yes sir, no sir. Now you know what you kind of attitude you get. Defund the police. That was unheard of. You know, down with the police. No, the highway patrol, when the black and white stopped you, we were respected. It should go back that way now, but it's not ever. It'll never go back that way.
Do you miss the job?
Absolutely, absolutely.
What do you miss about the job?
Truthfully, putting thugs in jail. And when I worked, if I stopped you for a violation, tags, speed, whatever, your attitude went a long way with me. If you were decent to me, I was decent to you. And 9 times out of 10, I'd let you go. but the attitude went a long way with me. There was enough thugs, and there still are, running the roads today to deal with them and the hard-working man just trying to make a living, you know? If he has expired tag in 30 days, go get it renewed, you know. If you're running 15 miles over the speed limit, slow down. And if you're running 90, the 50 miles on, we got a problem.
When's the last time that so when you retired, did you ever go back to your district headquarters? Did you ever go back or was it, I'm retired and that's it?
Well, you're invited to the headquarters for a Thanksgiving luncheon, a Christmas breakfast, or whatever. So yeah, I've gone back several times. Yeah.
That's great. That's great. What advice would you have for somebody that's thinking about doing the job?
Realize that you're not going to get rich doing it. You know, it is a good career. It was for me. I would recommend it. But if you're going to do it right. Don't go half-assed about it, you know. Take some pride in it. Always do the right thing. Always do the right thing.
Advice for somebody who's maybe halfway through their career, they're doing the job right now and they've got 10 years under their belt?
I was always told once you have 10 years, you're probably the turning point. If you're going to change jobs, do it now, you know. If you think you want to stick it out, then go for it and make the best of it and see it all the way through. But always do it right. Treat people like you want to be treated, and you'll do fine.
So at what point in your career did you decide, okay, it's time to retire?
Well, I knew that I had to retire early to pay my Social Security. That I could stay several more years, at times I wish I had of. But I knew that, you know, to get Social Security benefits, I had to have my quarters in, so I had to go work somewhere else that paid Social Security. That was my reason for retiring.
And when you retired, what did you go and do?
I went to work for the sheriff in the Civil Process Division, which was the court orders, serving the restraining orders and divorce papers and the lawsuits and so forth.
And when did you stop doing that?
Well, unfortunately, I stopped doing that when I got sick. I was diagnosed with cancer, so I had to stop because of the radiation and chemo.
So you've been retired for some time now.
Yes, sir.
What advice would you have for someone that's looking at retiring, that's considering it? What advice would you give to them?
Well, with the state, I guess the candidates see the same way. We had a mandatory retirement for state police. It was Tennessee law. You have to retire at age 55. If you're a certain percentage of your responsibilities as a supervisor, you can stay to age 60, I believe it is. But my advice is work as long as you can. As long as you're healthy and like what you're doing, work as long as you can. I've not enjoyed retirement. I really haven't. I've been working today if I was able.
Is there anything that you want to share that we haven't covered? Any story that kind of sticks out in your mind? Anything that you might think would be of value in sharing, or just something that?
Well, it's in value. Of course, every trooper's got stories, you know. If you've been there longer than 30 days, you got some kind of stories. I remember in Marshall County, one Saturday I was on the trooper on the road, only one working that shift. I got a call from dispatch that Columbia Police was chasing a stolen truck towards me. So I go up Highway 50 and try to set up. I get a call from dispatch. He's turned back the other way, back towards Columbia. So I continue my business. And then probably about 10, 15 minutes later, I get another call. He's coming back towards you, Highway 58, which is the alternate road. and one exit up from where I was. So I go racing up there to the exit to try to intercept them. As I get to the exit, here they come. There was the Murray County Sheriff's Office behind him, a couple of Columbia Police Department's cars behind him, and a state car. So I joined the chase. It was a 4x4 Ford F-150 with a lift kit. Why he's still there, I don't know. But we were chasing him towards Lewisburg. We went off the road, through the yards, back on the road. We had him boxed in, a car in front, car beside him, and me behind him. He braked, checked me, trying to wreck me. He veered towards the other cars, trying to wreck them. Being the senior trooper, I said, it's time to stop this. So we opened fire on his tires and shot the tires down. He ran on the rims, heading towards Lewisburg. I called for Lewisburg to set up a roadblock. We'd be there faster than a phone call. They had a roadblock set up. You had to leave an escape route for the courts. He took the escape route, and they cut down on him with shotguns. Now, I was real proud of myself because I hadn't wrecked. No damage to my car. As we went through the roadblock, I also got cut down with a shotgun on my car. So we got him up there to the bypass and got him slowed down enough, got him boxed in, and helped him out of the window of the car, of the truck. He was too slow getting out, so we helped him. Then I spent the rest of the night writing reports how my car got damaged.
Do you have an example of just an incident where you're like, I can't even believe that this happened?
There's probably two. I was the midnight supervisor. I got called to McMinn County of what we call 1046, was a wreck with injuries. And when I arrived, a car had come south on 75 out of Knoxville towards Chattanooga. Two drunks and a Bronco. Couldn't keep in the road. There was a tractor trailer flatbed parked on the side on the shoulder. For whatever reason, I don't know. I don't remember now. He broke down or out of hours or whatever. He was parked. And the Bronco ran off the road at the exact right time and caught the corner of the flatbed trailer through the windshield, decapitated the passenger's head. And of course, I think the driver maybe was still alive when I got there, but there was a body in the Bronco and the head was laying over on the pavement. You never forget that. And then one day in Coffee County, I got a call of a wreck on the mountain going up on the east side of the mountain, where a tractor trailer, for unknown reasons, just ran into the back of another one and burst into flames. And we had to watch him burn to death. We couldn't get to him, couldn't get him out of the cab. He was screaming and burning, and nothing you could do.
So, was that in the 70s? Probably both.
Late 70s, early 80s, yeah.
So what resources, because I'm assuming it's not like today, right? What resources did they provide you to make sure that you're okay after experiencing something like that?
None. Never heard of. Suck it up and go on. You know, you're tough. You're a trooper.
Yeah. Well, sir, I appreciate your time and thank you for coming in.
Yes, sir.
It was great getting to talk to you and learn a little bit more about your career. Because like I said, I think it's important. And, you know, we retire and, you know, that's it. Our stories leave with us. And I don't think that's right. I think people should hear them. So.
And most people don't believe them.
Cops always believe them, though. Cops know how it works.
Yeah.
Cops know how it works.
But the public doesn't. They have no clue. They have no clue what you go through.
You're right.